Hi, people. So this one's a little bit personal, but it might not be surprising actually for people who've been watching my channel for a long time. If that's the case, i.e., if you're not a very, very new subscriber, you know what I'm all about. You know that I talk about a lot of subjects that are topical, geopolitical subjects, socio-political subjects. That tends to be my niche or my field, so to speak, for these videos. And occasionally I do other things as well, like film reviews and things that are not really that heavy. But I've always seen myself as a serious guy. I have a sense of humor. I can relax. I can enjoy life, but I am a serious guy. I do take serious things seriously. Um, that's who I am. And part of that kind of overlaps with a very, very deep sense of values. And I don't mean that in a sort of pompous way, like sort of holier than thou, but I do have some very strong convictions. And I try hard to maintain those convictions and to stand up for them. And one way of doing that is by this medium, so that people can hear my thoughts and share their thoughts via the comments. And that's how I've always seen it. But I imagine other people out there who have deep convictions about things um, would feel the same way I do about how anger often taps into that. Now, I think that anger in some ways is one of the last great taboos. I was watching an interesting TED talk the other day. Um, I still can't remember what TED stands for, but anyway, they have some interesting lectures, and the woman was a survivor of sexual abuse. She was in an abusive relationship and she survived, but she went on a long path to overcome the anger that she had suppressed. And I understand that she still is on that journey. Um, I think there could be few things worse than feeling that someone else has been taking advantage of you so much that it really massively damages your confidence and then not having done anything about that at the time. I think that must be one of the worst things. Nobody likes to be walked over, and in this case, it was worse. It was sexual abuse. Um, that's why, one area when we talk about criminal justice, when we talk about victims of crime, we talk about the stress that victims go through, the anxiety and fear they feel, but perhaps an area that's overlooked is anger, deep anger. Um, because after all, we live in an era where mental health is an increasingly important subject, and rightly so. I think it's a good thing that mental health is more discussed today than it was in the past. I think it's a good thing that we have discussions about it. And one area of mental health that I feel is sort of overlooked is anger. Because when we think about mental health, people tend to think about depression, perhaps anxiety, perhaps people going through PTSD. Um, PTSD, of course, covers a wide range of things in itself. But anger as an emotion, is something I feel that, in a strange way, although it's very common, it's still stigmatized. And the lady in the video made this point. It is still stigmatized. And I think it's because when people have this perception of an angry person, for some reason that's often associated with a violent, out of control person. Because for some people, they do exhibit their anger through violence, or perhaps being bullying, perhaps yelling in other people's faces, or being quite unpleasant. The thing about anger, it's not a pleasant emotion, so it will never look pleasant. Anger will never look pleasant, but and this is what, if I can find the link to that video, I'll put it because I think you made some very good points. But one thing about anger is it's not an entirely negative thing. And I think it's a mistake to always see it as a negative thing. So the way I see this is anger motivates. Anger actually motivates. If, for example, you feel something is very unjust in this world, and believe me, I've got a lot of views on what I think is unjust. Surprise, surprise, Nathan here that has views, but I do. Um, I feel angry about those things. I feel angry about human rights abuses. I feel angry about people being treated unfairly. I feel angry about injustice, about a lack of justice. I feel angry about hypocrisy. And the level of anger varies depending on how deep the issue is. When it's something like a totalitarian regime like the CCP in China, that's, my anger level's pretty high because I feel that not only because of their inhumanity, as I see it, but the fact that I don't believe we are entirely winning this Cold War. And unfortunately, I think we are in a semi Cold War at the moment. I feel angry at our weakness that we allow, by we, I'm talking about Western liberal democracies, allow niceties in the sense of what we can't offend people to get in the way. That really angers me. Um, that we would put that before values. I mean, an example of this is what's happening in our universities. But anyway, I detract. I can talk about any issue that makes me angry. Crime makes me angry. You know, when a group of teenage thugs beat a young father to death, that just it scares me, but it also angers me. And then when I see a judge has given some ridiculously weak sentence as a result of something like that, that just it makes my blood boil, to be quite honest. Um, Now, is this because I'm an irrational, angry person? No, it's because I'm a human being who sees injustice and I'm responding in what I consider to be a natural way. But do I feel too angry too often? If I'm being totally honest, probably yes. Probably I do overexpose myself to some of this stuff. And probably, although I do chill out and I do relax and I do enjoy life as well, I should probably do that more often. Because, I said that anger can motivate, but we also have to remember anger has to be used in the right way. So if you read a news report that makes you angry, and it might be something different than what I've spoken about. For example, maybe if you're vegan, you might get very angry about what happens in the animal processing industry. I'm not a vegan, but I can understand that. I can actually understand your anger. Um, if you are, I could give many examples. I don't want to detract. Um, Injustice unfortunately happens. The world will never ever be perfect. We will never ever ever have the world exactly as we want it, and we have to accept that. But I think that anger can be utilized for a good thing. Without anger, there's apathy. I mean, if you're angry about crime, to me, that's better than being apathetic about it, because being apathetic means that no one cares. It just continues as normal. And if no one cares about an issue, it will never ever change. So anger can actually directly, um, it's the natural sibling of action in a sense. With anger comes a potential for action. I'm not saying that every time people are angry, then there's action. Very often I've got angry about something and I've just had to change the subject or watch something funny to distract myself or whatever. But I do think in that sense, anger can be used in a healthy vacuum. It can be used in a positive way. Self-control is extremely important, and this is an area that needs to be looked at a little bit because what do we mean by self-control? Well, to me, it means not going and whacking someone that you disagree with, no matter how much they piss you off, no matter how strongly you feel. There may be some very, very, very extreme circumstances. Let's say, for example, you had a loved one who died, and then someone to your face insulted that person in a really gratuitous way. I would lash out, absolutely. And I think it would be a totally human reaction. Um, so there are certain things where we shouldn't. This is why I don't think we should look down on people necessarily who are sometimes violent. And I really want to be careful how I say that. Don't get me wrong, if someone is violent to strangers for no reason, they are by definition a thug. But there are circumstances, I'm not pacifist, I believe there are circumstances where violence or at least controlled aggression is justified. And I wouldn't encourage it, but I think there are situations where we have to consider that. And in that sense, we shouldn't be too judgmental of people who may have been involved in a violent incident, but maybe there is more to it than people think. So, for example, if two guys are fighting in the street, most people would say, "Oh, they're antisocial." Maybe that's true. Maybe that's what they are. They're drunk. They're letting their egos get the better of them. But what if you have a situation where one of those guys had just seen his female friend being attacked by a rapist, and the other guy is the rapist, or a situation like that? I know that's kind of, but what I'm driving at here is I think we all have an inner anger. I think we all have an inner, um, I don't want to say beast, but yeah, we have an inner anger. So the calmest person in the world, the most diplomatic, calmest, peaceable person in the world, I guarantee if you push them too hard, they will snap. So there's people who are have a reputation for being angry. That's an angry guy. That's an angry woman. And I think there is more of a stigma on men. Why? Because an angry woman might be seen as cold, she might be seen as bitchy, something like that. But an angry man is seen as dangerous. He is seen as a thug. He is seen as all these things. So I do believe there's a bigger stigma on angry men, I have to say. I'm not saying angry women don't have a stigma. I think the implications are bigger on an angry man. That's why, frankly, if you have a situation where a couple is arguing, the public tend to naturally be more wary if the guy is shouting at his girlfriend or his wife than if she is shouting at her husband or boyfriend. That's just human nature because men are physically stronger. So people are more wary. Oh, is he being abusive? Is he, that's, and it might not be the case. It might be that she has just been pushed him too far and he has snapped because she has constantly put him down or whatever the case might be. So we don't know other situations. Um, we just don't. I'm not saying, by the way, it's healthy to yell at people, but I think with anger, we first of all have to be honest about it. We have to stop acting like it is such an unusual thing. Clearly, if someone has an anger problem, that is, they're always lashing out and they're always yelling and they cannot have a calm conversation about something, then they probably do need to get help. That it probably is a problem, especially if violence is involved. Like people who have this, you often see this in court cases where someone's had too much to drink and they lash out, and then they're all regretful afterwards. But it will happen again because that's how they deal with their anger, and it's clearly unhealthy. Excuse me. Um, I'm not a violent person. I never lash out, but I do get quite worked up about things, and so in recent years, I've tried sort of not medication, meditation. It might be burning incense, um, something that helps me, candles, relaxing in that way. I'm not saying it's an instant fix, or rather, I'm not saying it's a long-term fix. But that sort of thing is important. So I don't think people who express anger should be stigmatized. I mean, take politics, for example. I don't want a politician who is overly sanitized. If I see an angry politician, I actually react to that person in a positive way, believe it or not, because I think actually that politician is being sincere to their own feelings. They're not trying to hide it because it doesn't look good. They're actually being sincere. Now, I'm not saying that in the case of politics, obviously there's responsibility involved. So if a politician is being angry, but they're just being reckless and they're being a demagogue, that's a different matter. But if, for example, you have a politician who expresses anger about crime, I'm going to warn that person. I'm going to think, well, they get it. They understand the public anger because they're feeling it as well. But if you have a sort of typical politician's answer, like, I'm going to look into this and it's very unfortunate, and we will look at the white paper, and the public, I think, it doesn't resonate in the same way. It just doesn't. So I think for public figures to express anger is sometimes healthy because it shows that actually they're not that different from us. They're also human beings. They get angry about things. They might be right or wrong, but they get angry. Um, anyway, that's my take. I try to utilize my anger in a positive way. That is, I try to give it a focus. I try to spread awareness. I try to campaign. Um, I could always do more. I might well be involved in the political arena in the future, who knows? But I think that anger itself is not a problem. The problem is when it becomes obsessive. The problem is when it's not controlled. That's when anger is a problem. Anger in of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. I would honestly question someone who's always calm, who never feels strong views about anything. Maybe you get people who think they're not political, and they kind of like to take the middle ground with every issue because they don't like arguing. Well, that's understandable. But I guarantee even those people will have at least one issue that they feel strongly about. In my case, there's a lot of issues because I'm a political person. It's in my personality. For some people, that's not the case. But all I'm saying is we shouldn't stigmatize anger so much because we all have it on some level. And I think it's healthy to utilize it. I think it's healthy to express it. Because incidentally, I think I mentioned that one unhealthy way to express anger is by lashing out in violence. But I think another unhealthy way to express it is by bottling up, bottling up, bottling up, and then suddenly you explode. That's very I think that would be far worse for family members or relatives or friends than someone who is a bit edgy sometimes, um, because it's more unpredictable. But also, a parting thought: anger, like I say, can be utilized, but it is very, very important to balance it out with relaxing as well. Because if you're always angry, that is clearly unhealthy. So balance is also very important. Thanks for watching and let me know your thoughts. Let me know, incidentally, since it's about the subject, what are you angry about? What things make you angry? I may or I may agree or disagree, but it's about the subject of anger. It's not necessarily about the subject matter. It's about anger itself and how people utilize that. But I do think we need to break down the stigma. Thanks for watching.